Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we're learning Masechtas Bava Kama daf Mem Gimel. We are going to begin on Mem Beis Amud Beis, 3 lines from the bottom. Uvenizakin lo Amar Rabbi Akiva. When it comes to the dinim of damages, Rabbi Akiva does not say this din. So this is going on the Gemara which we saw in yesterday's daf. The first wide line, Rabbi Akiva holds that based on the pasuk of Yorash Osa, he says that from there we learn that the husband can be Yorish his wife. However, when it comes to the dinim of Kofer, we do not say that because, as we concluded, the din of Kofer, the only time a person actually could collect this money is after that person died. And therefore, this is considered to be roy. So for her inheritors will end up getting the kofer money, not her husband, since it came to her only after her death. However, again, when it comes to, in general, he does learn out v'yorashosa that the husband is Yorish, his wife. The question is, when is zakin lo yom Rabbi Akiva? Rabbi Akiva doesn't say this when it comes to damages, Vasanya, but we learned Hikas Isha Biyotze Yoadeha. So let's say a person hits a woman, and because of that, her child comes out. Noisin Nezek V'tsar Leisha. It says Beferish that the Nezek, the damages, and the tsar that he caused this woman, that goes to the woman. Udemei Vladois Labal. And the value of the Vlad, however that's figured out, the fetus, who she miscarried because of this hit, that goes to the husband. So that's what happens, of course, if she does have a husband. Ein habal nice liyarsha. Let's say she doesn't have a husband, so then we say it goes to the yarshim. And Rashi says, Ein ha'isha nosein liyarsheha nezek v'tsar. Okay, that's what it says over here. Ein ha'isha nosenes liyarsheha. So it says it does not to her, the Baal, even when it comes, not to her Baal, even by nezek. We see clearly that the husband will not even receive the nezikin, the damages, the nezek and the tsar. Ein ha'isha, let's say, which basically means that she died. So, who is Yorish? So the husband is not even Yorish than the damages. That's going to be the question. Ha'isa, so the proper language is Ein ha'isha no sein liyarsheha. It's given to her Yorshim, not to her Baal, even by nezek. So that's going to be the question. Ha'isa shimcha v'nish tachora. Let's say she was a maidservant, she was freed, says Rashi. Claimer, she was freed while she was pregnant. So let's say that was the situation. Mem Gimel Amud Aleph, O Giyaris Zacha, says Rashi. Mu'uberes Meger. Let's say she was pregnant. Umesu Shneim, and they died. Pater min hakoil. So in that situation, you don't have to pay anyone. Shu koidim, hoyel v'ein kol v'ein lo yarshim. Since they don't have the inheritors, again, let's focus on the ger. A ger who has no children after the conversion, min haTorah, the din is that they don't have yarshim, and therefore kol koidim b'shla zacha. Whoever is able to be koidim, who's zoicha the nechasim of the ger who died, is able to acquire it. This person obviously came first, and therefore you don't have to pay back any of the damages. Yisrael is muberes, says Rashi. Yisrael, if you have a Jewish woman, even if they don't have children, yeshli yarshim, even if, let's say, there's no husband or wife, the wife was killed, they eventually will have some type of yorish. You just have to dig a little bit deep into that. It continues with Rashi. Davka nishtachra kaidim chavala. It's only if she was freed before she was hit. If, let's say, she was hit while she was still a shivcha, chai b'koil, you would have to pay. If the demei v'ladais shivcha enam el labalim shalah. So, because at the time of the hit, if she was still a shivcha, so that money would go to her adain, to the master, as we'll see later on. Okay, so anyway, but this is a kasha. We see clearly that in the event that she dies, it says that the husband is not going to be yarish her damages. So maraba begarusha, we're talking about a situation of a garusha, says Rashi. I just finished this last piece. In the Gemara, b'chein amar Rav Nachman begarusha, says Rashi, begarusha askin mishum hachi noisan liyarsheha she gersha achar hachavala. So the reason why the husband doesn't get anything is because they were divorced. So Amri Garusha, Nami Tifluk b'demei v'ladais. If even though we're dealing with a Garusha, we should say this regarding the demei v'ladais, the price of the value of the fetus. The truth is that the husband is zaycha to the demei v'ladais. Afil ba'al lebeznus, even if they had bia beznus. My time Omikra kasher yashas alav bal ha'isha. So over there it says that it's totally on the boil, and therefore because of that it says bal ha'isha. So even if they're not married or they're divorced, nonetheless this pasuk specifically says that the man is entitled to the demei v'ladais. However, when it comes to the nezek and sar, no, because we're talking about the case of a grusha, which is mashma. Otherwise, Hitaka would be entitled al Yerusha to acquire her nizokin. So v'nukmal Rabba, why doesn't Rabba establish and place this situation, kigoin shegavu mois, where the Beis Din collects the money, says Rashi. Kloimer shegavu Beis Din mois, the Beis Din collects money min hamazik, from the one who did damage, with shalom nezek v'tsar, and they have the money in the Beis Din, they collected it for the damages, the pain. The alpha patient is chayiv lo mechayim lo yolef milva b'shtar. So even though he was chayiv even in his lifetime, we're not going to learn out from a milva b'shtar. What does that mean? So let's look in the Gemara weiter. So the Beis Din collected the money. Rav Nachman kigayin shigavu karka, or let's say according to Rav Nachman, a different answer, that the Beis Din collected the land. Yamar Rabba gavu karka yeshlo gavu mois ein loy. Rav Nachman Amar gavu mois yeshlo gavu karka ein lo. So they hold there's a machlokus about the Beis Din collecting, even though it wasn't actually given over. What does that constitute? Is that considered to be that is muchsik, or is it only roy kiva muchsik? Because this is, as Rashi points out, is a machlokus when it comes to a bechor, a firstborn. So let's say Rashi says govu yarshim karka b'milva shehilva avihem. Let's say the yarshim acquired, they received the land in which was owed to their fathers. Yeshlo b'chor pi shnayim dehavli kamuchsuk. It's not roy since it's land, but not by metaltalin. Since it's land, so therefore it's considered to be like in properties in which is directly connected. It's a meshubid, and therefore you can automatically collect it. So we don't say, according to him, that land is considered to be roy kiva muchsuk. So therefore he would be able to collect karka pishnayim. However, the other, and gobu mois ein lo pishnayim, glav hani mois hani achvihem v'habi roy. It's not the same money, right? Milva is l'hoitzon nisna. So when it comes to money or metaltalin, you don't have to return back the same money that you borrowed. And therefore, for that reason, there's this machlokus. But according to this opinion, they say that when it comes to land, the bechor will collect pishnayim, but not when it comes to money. However, the other man Dimer says the opposite. Rav Nachman says, Govu karka ein lo, the karka lo haniach avihem v'havi roy. V'achinami lukum Rav Nachman kagan shegava karka dehavi roy. So the question is, why do you use the case of Garusha, and that's the reason why the person is not Yarish, say the Baal doesn't get it when the Beis Din collected the land, which is only Roy Kavamuchsuk? That's the question. So why do we have to say the husband doesn't get it? Because it's considered to be a case of Garusha. Say a case where the Beis Din collected, again, is this machlokus, whether or not it's the money or it's the land, but just keeping it simple, according to one Mandi Aimer, that when we're dealing with land in which is encumbered property, so therefore because of that shibud, we don't say that it's roy anymore. It's considered like muchsuk, and therefore the Baal would be kind of the pishnayim, but not when it comes to mois or pumfakert. So whatever you can say, which either shita, the reason why he's not yarish is because it's considered to be roy, and we, as we said, just like a bechor and habal noitel roy kabamuchsuk. So therefore, why don't we say that case? Ari hani mili lebnei marava alib rabbanan ki kamerhacha karebi. Everything was said is only liba de bnei marava. And Eretz Yisrael says Rashi deshalcha bechor notel mishnayim b'milva. That they hold that it's shaykh that when it comes to a firstborn, you can get double portion from a loan, v'lo beribis, and not from the profit of the loan. V'okmina libed rabbanan depliga leha derebi. Der ein bechor noitel pishnayim b'shvach sheshavchu nechasim le'achar misas avihem. That the son does not get a double portion on the benefits of the increases on these properties after the father died. That according to him, you should be able to collect even the ribis, because that's a shvach that happened memela, according to him. So v'chi amri hacha, when we're talking over here by the case of Garusha, that's the reason why we say it is karebi, says Rashi. He holds that, according to Rabbi, the Bechor does get double portion on the improvements, but Kol Shekain b'milva, on a loan, the command de gavya dami. It's considered like it's already collected. Loshna gavu karka, loshna gavu ma'ois. According to him, according to Rabbi holds even you can collect shvach to the Bechor, a double portion. Certainly, a Beis Din took the karka or the money, it would be kamuchsuk, because the Beis Din's holding it. So it's collected, and it would go to the husband. So according to Rabbi, you need to establish the case of a Gerusha. Hilka, says Rashi, Ilav de Girsha Shakal de Balka Bechor. That's that. Koifer, but it doesn't want to remind us when it comes to Koifer, I feel Rabbi Moide, de Roy who de Hoyle Ein Boishum Chiv Mechayim, Holahavi Kishvacham de Mamela. When it comes to Koifer, it's very different, because by Koifer, as we said before in yesterday's daf, the only time you actually are coining it, or you're shaykh to that money, is only after that person died. So therefore, that certainly is considered to be roy, v'enabal noitel roy kavamuchsak, even according to Rebbe. However, when it comes to a situation where Beis Din's already collected it, or if for that matter any loan, the reality is that the bechor should be able to be entitled to it, as well as the husband, and therefore we can't use this as an example. Okay. Let's stop there for a second. Let's look at question 7. Aliba de Rebbe, the Bechor Noitel Pishnayim Bishvach Nechasim La'achar Misa, the Kol Shekain Milva, as it's certainly a loan, the Havli Muchsik V'loroi, Ha'im Hu Adin L'Shitaso, the Mei Vladais, the Kaifer, the Havli Muchsik L'Bal, the Yorish Es Ishtai. So as we said, when it comes to Kofer, it's not muchsik. However, the mei vladais havi habal muchsik. The husband is muchsik, and either it's interesting. You could say it that way, or you can say it's totally because the pasuk says kasher yashasol bal isha. But regardless, the husband is entitled to the mei vladais, but not to the kaifer. So is question 7. Okay. Weiter. Rav Shimon ben Lakish, and we have to remember this is Reish Lakish. We'll keep that name in mind. Shor shehemis as an eved. So you have a shor that killed a person, not an eved. A person was a slave, a person, of course. Shalul b'kavana. But the shor didn't do it with intention. It was done without kavana. So the din is, according to Reish Lakish, patim shloshim shkolim. Now normally you have to pay shloshim shkolim when if an ox would kill a person, so then there's a din kaifer and everything. However, when it kills an eved, there's a kanas of shloshim shkolim. But not if the animal killed shalol b'kavana. Shnever kesser shloshim shkolim yitin la'adainav. You give the 30 shkolim to the master. V'ashor yisakil, and you have to kill the ox. Kol zman sheshor b'skila habal mishalman shloshim shkolim. In hashor b'skila ein habal mishalman shloshim shkolim. So they're tied to one another in the pasuk. So therefore, in this situation, because the animal did not kill with kavana, we're not going to kill the animal. Says Rashi, ein hashor b'skila ein habal misham kaifer v'lezer di'aymer le'el ein dini el b'meschavin l'haroig. It's necessary. Again, the question whether or not you have to have kavana. So according to him, he says the only time we would actually put, according to this Gemara, the only time we would actually sentence this animal to have it destroyed is only in the situation, in the event where the animal killed b'kavana. Okay. So that is his shita. That was Reish Lakish. Now we turn to Rabba. Omar Rabba. Let's remember Rabba's shita. Shor shehemis ben chayrin. Again, shalol b'kavana. You have an ox that killed here, not an eved, but a ben chayrin, in which normally you would have to pay kaifer, but since it was without kavana, patim kaifer. Shenemar hashor yisakav gambal yumos. So im kaifer yushas halav. So if kaifer is placed upon him. So again, we make this connection. Kol zman sheshor b'skila bal mishalman kaifer. Ein hashor b'skila ein bal mishalman kaifer. So again, you have Reish Lakish and you have Rabba, who seem to be saying very similar dinim, but one regarding to an eved, the other one regarding to a ben chayrin. By the eved, you wouldn't have to pay the shloshim shkolim if the animal killed shlo b'kavana, and according to Rabba, you would not have to pay the kaifer money in the event that the shor would have killed a ben chayrin shlo b'kavana. Of course, again, this is specifically because, as they learn, there's a connection of these two concepts in the pasuk of having the animal killed. Now, Abaye. Now, Abaye has difficulty with this. It says, and this is going to be the key line we're going to focus on, Hamish Shairis Pliny, that my ox killed a person. O Sharishal Pliny, or it killed another animal, but we're going to focus on a person. So the din is you pay. You have to pay. Now, my lav kaifer. It's telling you have to pay kaifer, says Rashi. Now, obviously, in this case, we're not going to kill the animal. Shari Haide, because he admitted the owner of the animal is the one who said this. The armor kamisas abam kach misas ashor. So the din is that just like you can't say, oh, I murdered 20 people, so you have to sentence me to death. It doesn't work like that. So it's the same thing. That you can't just say this and your animal will be killed. We're not going to kill your animal. But nonetheless, it says you still have to pay. You have to pay kaifer. So we see that the two of them are not linked. The Gemara says, lo, damim. All it's referring to is not kaifer, but damim, says Rashi. Hadid tani mishalom labatar's kaifer. That's not what we're talking about. Because in that situation, you would not pay kaifer. But Kigain, he says, if lo mishalim nami, Kigain ilesla nichse, if he has no money, la b'chlal oinishu, the in kaifer below skill of the shore. Let's say the guy just pasha has no money, so then that's another interesting loophole. Let's say the guy has plenty of money. Al korachach misham domim. There's still a monetary value of loss. Dolgar Misa and Izakin. We're not going to say that Misa is any different than damages. Deal Aske, if the person would have been damaged, Afgav Danamaskila, Boila Shlume, Way Pchas Dama of Hakanamasham, Dama of Yarshav. Kaifer is a separate thing. So you would still have to pay damages in general when it comes, even if an animal wouldn't be killed. We don't kill an animal for damaging. So you still have to pay the financial losses that were incurred. So over here, that's all it's referring to. But Taki, you're right. When it comes to kaifer, you wouldn't have to pay kaifer in this situation because the animal wouldn't be killed. Idamim name a seifa. This can't be talking about damim because look at the seifa of this. It says as follows: Hamish Shairas Avdoi Shilploini. So this is very similar to the case of, again, with Rabbi and Reish Lakish. But over here, we say that when it comes to a person who admits that my animal killed an Eved, he doesn't pay. Now, what does it mean he doesn't pay? Now, L'chaira, you would think Paship Shot, it must be referring to he doesn't pay the Shloshim Shkolm because Moed B'Knas is Pater. But that's not what we're establishing. We said the Reish is talking about Damim, to eat Damim, my low. As we just said, you should certainly have to pay for the monetary value of the loss. So why would it say then that you wouldn't have to pay when it comes to the situation of you admitting that your Eved killed an Eved, that you're sure killed an Eved? So Amalei Yechil Nishnuyalach Reisha Dam V'Seifa Knas. You're right. I can just easily tell you they're two totally separate cases. Just because you have a Reish and a Seifa doesn't mean they're exactly the same. They're two separate cases. So therefore, you're right. The Reish is we established this case of Damim. And therefore, that's because when it comes to the din of Kaifer, you don't pay Kofer. You don't pay Kofer. However, the Seifa is talking about the case of Knas. And when it comes to Knas, we know that, again, there's no... You're right. The Seifa is talking about Shloshim. It's not Damim. Because you would pay the Damim. But you wouldn't pay the Knas because the Moed B'Knas is Pater. We don't like answering Daichak Terutzim over here and saying there's two totally different cases. That's not something which we would prefer to answer, and therefore we're going to not stick to that. So that we're not going to answer. Really, we're going to say it's consistent as we continue Mem Gimel and Beis. That the Reish is Damim, because we have no choice. That's what we're saying. Because since it's a case of Damim, that you have to pay. We don't pay the Kaifer because you're not killing the animal, because you're Moida. And we say Kakmis is a Baal, Kakmis is a Shar. But the Seif is also Damim. One second. So why do you not have to... So we're talking about Damim in the Seifa, so why do you not have to pay in the Seifa? There's a monetary loss. Mihu ben Chayrin the Mishalim Kaifer... Al pi atzmai hechidami. So, however, when it comes to the chayim, misham kaifer al pi atzmai. It's possible we can find a case where a person could admit. When it comes to the seifa, we never find because it's moed b'knas is pater. When it comes to shloshim shalom, that's a knas, because an eved is not necessarily worth that much. So therefore, it's above and beyond necessarily the damage that you caused. So that's kanas, and moed b'knas is pater. However, kaifer is not in kanas necessarily, and we can actually find a situation, Taka, where even though normally you're right, kaifer you would not have to pay if the animal's not killed. But I'll tell you, there still is a possibility of kaifer, even based on your own admission. How's that? V'hechidami. How do we understand this? The I asu sahadi. If witnesses would come. Va'asihidu and testify by the kotl that the ox killed a person. However, itam havi imuad havi. They do not know the status of this animal. They don't know if this animal that killed was a tam or was a muad. The amar mari the muadhu, and the master says, "Oh no, that animal that killed it was a muad." The mishalim kaifer al pi atzmo. In that situation, Yutaka would pay kaifer al pi atzmai. Okay, let's slow down. Let's look in Rashi. And we're kind of in the middle over here, but let's look at Rashi. The hechidami kigani asu sahadi. The hachavan the misham kaifer to kufar kapara. Lo kanasa. So this is a very key element of Rashi. Rashi's reminding us, unlike when it comes to the case of the Eved of Shloshim Shkolim, when it comes to the din of Kaifer is not Kanas, since it's a Kapara. But by an Eved, that money is a Kanas. So he's potter on that, and we're going to say even the Damim in a second. But we'll continue Rashi. V'heicha deleka edim klal, hu de patru mekayfer mishim gzeres akasav de ein hashar b'skila. So you're right, there's gzeres akasav. If there would be no edim over here, he would be pater from kaifer. Because if there's no edim at all, that this animal should be killed because it killed, so then if he would admit, he would admit, yes, my animal killed on his own, and there was no other witnesses, then you would not pay kaifer because the animal would be killed. Skipping 2 lines. If there was no witnesses at all, and there's actually in the Gemara too, which we'll get to in a second, if, let's say, there's no witnesses, there's no kaifer, so he pays damim. So whether or not he must pay kaifer, we never find a situation ever in which, by you admitting to the 30 shkolim that you would have to pay, even if someone would say your animal killed, we wouldn't know if it killed it killed an eved. But we don't know if the animal that killed was a tamar muad, and the master would say, oh yeah, that eved that was killed by my animal, which is a muad, the pater miknas, he would still be pater, because it's kanas. Afagav da hashor b'skila, even if you would say the animal is killed, and even when it would be a tam, mihu moedim kanas potter hilkach ki leika edim klal fil damim lo mishalim. So now let's go back into the Gemara. So again, we're talking about Heicha Timsa is a situation where you have a group of edim, you have witnesses that say your animal definitely killed. I just don't know if it's an eved. If the animal that the person rather that killed was a ben chayrin, was that animal tamar muad, and you say no, it's taka muad. So in that situation, you would pay kaifer al piatzmai, because it's not entirely al piatzma, because you did have witnesses. You're just adding one little piece to it, and it's not a situation of kanas. Kaifer is not kanas; it's kufr kapara. That says kufr kapara, so therefore the din is that we don't say that you'd be al piatzma, you'd be potter. So you'd be chayav to pay kaifer in that situation. So heichad aleika edim. So if there's no witnesses, misham damim. That's why if there's no witnesses, you would still have to pay damim when it comes to the case of ben chayrin. Mashein kin gabi eved. When the shor killed an eved, the animal misham kanas al piatzma, you never will pay the shloshim shkolim if you admit, even in the situation where these witnesses come. The Gemara says the heichidami di also edim v'asihidu beid katavu yadu yitam havi would have him. If witnesses would come and say, yes, I know that you have a shore that killed an eved. I don't know if the shore that killed was a tamar muad, and you explained v'amari muadhu u'mishalom knas al piatzmo. You're not going to have to pay the knas of kaifer. Let's say again, tam, you don't pay any knas, or it's chatzi kaifer. But the din is certainly you don't pay the full kanas. So you wouldn't pay the full koifer. So because it's kanas. So even though the witnesses came, you still would never pay the kanas if you're a moida. So heichad aleika, and when no witnesses come, lo misham damim, you're also not going to pay. So this is the point. So that's a tremendous chiddush. So again, when it comes to a case of Ben Yisrael, when a shor killed Yisrael, it's shayach. No, normally, it's true that if all you do is you're just straight up maida, you're not going to pay kanas because the animal's not going to be killed. But you still have to pay the damim. Why? Because it's possible that witnesses can come, say that your animal killed, and you explain them was a muad, then in that case you would pay kaifer. Mashenkin, when it comes to when it comes to an eved, the din is in the exact same situation. You would still not pay the 30 shkol because it's Ba'id B'Kanasis your potter. So since that's the case, when witnesses don't come, and you say that your animal killed an eved, of course you're not going to pay the kaifer in that situation, but you also will not have to pay the damim either. Okay. Question TA1. Mandi Omer ein hashor b'skiwa. According to one who says that a shore will not be, if an animal is not killed or destroyed, ein habal mishalmin kaifer, that they will not pay kaifer. Heichem mishkachas la sheishalm kaifer al pi atzmo. How can we ever find a situation where you're going to be paying kaifer al pi atzmo? And this is exactly what we said. Im yesh edim shenagach v'lo yadai tam imuad v'balam oimer demuad havi v'ashor b'skila v'balam mishalmin kaifer al pi atzmo. In that situation, there's no question the animal killed, and if we're going to kill the animal, the whole question is, what's the deal with the kaifer? So we say that he would have to pay kaifer in that situation. Okay. Good. Weiter. Okay. So that's how we're answering it up until this point. Meisiv Rav Shmuel b'Rav Yitzchak. So he asked the following kasha. Kol shechai b'ben chayrin chai b'eved. Anytime you have a time which you're chayiv for harming or killing a free person, the same din is when it comes to an eved. There's no difference. And therefore, ben b'kaifer, ben b'misa. When it comes to the kaifer and the misa, so one second, kaifer b'eved mi'ika, that doesn't make any sense. How can you say that the dinim are the same when it comes to kaifer? Kaifer only applies if you're a ben chayrin, not if you're a slave. If a person killed a slave, there's no kaifer. So what does that mean they're the same? El-lav domim. We see, if an ox kills an eved, you do pay the domim. So ikadi amri hu moisiv lav hu mafarikla. He answered the mafarikla. Ikadi amri. Some say amr le rabba hachi katani. This is how he reads it. Kol shechai beben chayrin bekavana al pi edim. If it was done with kavana, which means the animal will be killed, and there's witnesses, al pi edim kaifer chai be'eved knas. So in that situation, certainly there would be a din kaifer, there'll be a din knas, because it was witnesses, wasn't the admission of the owner, but rather was with edim. So these punishments will be administered. So v'kol shechai b'ben chayrin shelo b'kavana, that's with kavana. So therefore, so too, anytime by ben chayrin shelo b'kavana al pi edim damim chayiv. In that situation, you would still have to pay the monetary loss when it comes to killing a person. Be'eved shelo b'kavana al pi edim damim. So here, it's with witnesses that the domim is paid. But al pi atzmo, since it's a kanas, he doesn't pay domim either. Amle rava ihachi, if that's the case, isha shelo b'kavana al pi edim nishalm domim. When it comes to the damage caused by fire, we should say the exact same thing, even though it was done unintentionally. But if there's witnesses, you should have to pay damage, dumim. Now, although of course there's no kofar over here. Kofar is only where a person is killed, in this case by an animal, but not by the owner's animal. But over here, let's say the person was killed by a fire. So there's no din of kofar in that situation. But we should maybe say the same thing in that situation. Isha shelo b'kavan al pi edim nishalom damim. Says Rashi, I hachi deshar shelo b'kavan al pi edim deleisi b'taris kaifer mishalom damim. So if you tackle hold, you should pay damim. Kivan sheish damim l'misas adam b'makam shein kaifer kanas. So isha nami deleisi b'taris kaifer. So when it comes to ish, l'shalom damim shelo b'kavana. And there's dins of damages. Certainly, if it was done with kavana, obviously, in that this is the point. With kavana, there's a din kilma b'rabamina, that you killed someone with fire. It's not like with an ox, even though you have to pay kaifer. But when it comes to kavana, you would be totally potter because you're chay misa. So menolil rabba deloy mishalim. How do we know taki wouldn't have to pay? Let's say you have a gedi, which is tied up, and you have an eved next to it, and he gets burnt up. So the din is you're chayiv. What you're chayiv to pay? Why? Says Rashi, what are you chayiv to pay? A gedi. Va'agadish upater al eved. You have to pay the damages, but you're pater on the death of the eved. What do you mean? The guy died. Says Rashi, Shayu Levroyach. The man wasn't tied up, so he could have ran away. The fact that he died, it's not your fault entirely, and therefore you're not going to be punished by Misa. You're not going to be punished by kill. There's not going to be any severe death penalty. So therefore, because of that, you have to pay. However, Eved Kafas Loy, let's say on the other hand, if you have the Eved that's tied up, so in that situation, you're going to be pater, says Rashi, V'ksava Rava Hai Pater Eved Gedi Kaimer. You're pater on the Eved and the Gedi. Eved Mishom De'en Mishalman Ul Eved El Makam Kanas Mishor Muad. The only time you would have to pay for the Eved is only a case of Kanas by a Shor Muad. That's the only time there's a din paying. When it comes to a din of Kaifer, that's only dafka when an animal does it, not if you do. The animal should have ran away. So technically, because it's a case of Kim and Ramina had been Chayrin, so then the din is there is no din mis over here, so therefore it's going to pot you completely. This means also by damim. So therefore we see over here taka, when it comes to Eish, you're going to be potted from damim. So therefore that would be the raya. So Amir Reish Lakish no going to hitas begufa shel eved the come to Rabbi. And we're talking about a situation not where the fire just randomly went and it killed someone, but your mom took the fire just like you would have taken a knife and harmed a person. So in that situation, we certainly would say the din of Kimur Ramina, and that's the reason why you're pater. However, it's not a raya that you would be pater necessarily bedamim in a normal situation. The sanya chaymer be'esh mebabor. How is fire more strict than bor? She'esh muedas lachol ben davar haroylo ben never she'en roylo. We had this before. Now, when it comes to the dinim of fire, it's considered to be mued on things that it's fit to burn and things which are not fit to burn. Fine. However, ben davar she'en roylo. Ma'ashen kain babor. Not so when it comes to the din of a pit. So when it comes to a pit, there's a distinction that you're not chayiv on a davar she'ein royla. Ve'ilu she'ha'esh, when it comes to fire, mishalem shlo b'kavana damim. It says beferish, when it comes to fire, you pay, even though it was unintentional, you pay the monetary loss. Ma'ashen kin babor, lo katani. Lo. So we see clearly, this is the distinction. That when it comes to Eish, we see Ma'ashen Babor Lokatani. So Dilmatan Vashir. So basically what we're trying to say over here again, we're trying to prove that when it comes to Eish Shalob Kavana, it says Damim. There is a chiyuv there is a chiyuv of Damim. Ma'ashen Kin Babor, there's not. So Gemara says Dilma Tan Vashire. Let's slow down for 1 second. Let's look at question 8. Question 8. Chamer be'esh mebabor she'esh moedes l'echel ben davar royla mashir tan l'chad man de'omer. So it says it's leaving something out. That fire is more strict than Eish because fire is muid to something in which it is even something which is not fit. Fine. Ve'ilu, that's all it says. Ve'ilu, let's go back to the Gemara, let's read it properly. She'esh mishlem mishlem kavana damim ma'ashen k'mamor katani. It does not mention that the distinction between fire and a bor is that when it comes to fire, you would have to pay damim. Must be because you don't pay damim. Gemara says, no, maybe that is also true that you still have to pay damim when it comes to Eish. And look, Tan Vashir. So this is the answer. She'esh mishlem is damim mishlem kavana ma'ashen babor. So it's possible that Taka, you do have to pay damim, the monetary loss, when it comes to Eish. It doesn't mention this as a distinction when it comes to Eish between Eish and bor. All it does is say that Eish, you have to pay for something which is davar she'ein royla. Okay, but maybe it could be including other things. Why does the Gemara not say my shad high shire? Okay. Elo rava gubi boy iboy. Actually, this was a question. So instead of just quickly saying Oh yeah, when it comes to Ish, that there is no din of having to pay for Damim, Shlo B'Kavana, it was actually a question. Mi Amrinan, do we say, Gabi Shorhu de B'Kavana Misham Kaifer? We know, if the animal intentionally wishes to kill, in which the animal will be destroyed, you have to pay Kaifer, Shlo B'Kavana Misham Damim. So if the animal killed without intention, you still have to pay a monetary value. Obviously, if an animal is killed by fire, in that situation, you do not pay kaifer. So maybe there you don't have to pay damim. In other words, maybe damim is linked to kaifer. And if there's a case like by Eish, when there's no kaifer, there shouldn't be any damim either. We know that when it comes to shore, even though it was done unintentionally, even though there was no kaifer, you still have to pay the value, which obviously shows they're not linked. So Gabi Isha Nami Lo Misham Kaiver. We don't know teku. On why it says v'liyadinan. Okay, so that's what we're saying. That's possible that we're talking about. Maybe they're linked, or maybe they're not linked. So therefore, we're not really so sure. Maskana, what the din is when it comes to eish shlo b'kavana, whether or not the din is taka that you would end up having to pay damim or not. Okay. All right, let's go slow. It's 2 dots. TB2. Rabba miboyle. Isha shlo b'kavana mimisham damim alo. Masvar l'chalek. Bain shor shlo b'kavana. The misham damim. The il isha lo yisham damim. Why would you make a distinction? Make sure I'm going to say this right. I got this wrong. I got an X. Why would you think to make a distinction between an ak shlo b'kavana that you pay shal damim? So the reason is because, actually I have the answer sheet over here, but I can just say it. Just answer it cleanly. So his question is because Isha shel b'kavana mi misham damim lo. Oh, this was actually, all I have is the question. Oh, here's the answers. I have the question in there. The shore mipnei shaham misham kaifer b'kavana misham damim shel b'kavana. So again, maybe kaifer is linked. Kaifer with kavana you pay when it comes to a shore. With kavana killing, you have to pay a person, so you pay kaifer. Shlo b'kavana, there's damim. So therefore, maybe you would think when it comes to the case of eish b'kavana, there's no kaifer, so shlo b'kavana should not be damim. Okay, that's the answer. Mem Gimel Mem Beis TB2. Okay, I might as well mark up the test itself. Mem Gimel Amud Beis. Okay. All right. All right. Let's continue. That was, let's just mark this down. TB2. So, mi amrinan is sorry, Gabi Shor who the b'kavana misham kaifer shlo b'kavana misham damim of ish the b'kavana lo misham kaifer shlo b'kavana nami loy misham damim. That's the havamina. Okay, like that's the sad to say no damim. All right, let's see from another until the next 2 dots. Kiyos Rav Dimi Rav Yochanan, focusing on the names of Rav Yochanan. So when he came, we said the following: Kaifer matam loimer. Im kaifer, when it says im kaifer, l'rabas kaifer shlo b'kavana ki kaifer b'kavana. Unlike what we previously established, so we now have a machlokas that tells us, interestingly enough, that it's not true, like the sheet that we began with in Reish Lakish, Rabbi Yochanan usually argue about this, but over here we're talking about a case of Ben Chayrin. So the din, Rabba says, Shlo b'kavana, you're put from kaifer. Over here, Rabbi Yochanan is chaylik, and it says, no, it's not true. If an animal kills, even without kavana, you still have to pay kaifer. Amli Abai, El Miyata, Evan Nami. How about when it comes to an Evid, which Reish Lakish also said, if it's shlo b'kavana, you would not pay. Eved nami matam im eved rabos eved shel b'kavana eved b'kavana. Is that true? But it's kanas. So v'chi tema haganami. It's true that Rav Yochanan doesn't just say you pay koifer, but you also pay the shloshim shkolim in the exact same situation shel b'kavana. Yomi Reish Lakish shor shehimis as the eved shel b'kavana patim shloshim shkolim. And well, so what? Reish Lakish and Rav Yochanan argue all the time. Gavar karamis. They're two different people. Why is that a stira? And Reish Lakish and Rav Yochanan constantly have different opinions. Kiyasa Rabbanim Rav Yochanan Eved Matam with the Lamer Yimid Rabbos Eved Shlo B'Kavana Eved B'Kavana. So Taka Rav Yochanan is of this opinion that when it comes to this, it says Im Eved. So it comes to tell you even Shlo B'Kavana. So Taka, we see Rav Yochanan is chaylik and says even when it comes to Shlo B'Kavana of an Eved, you still would have to pay the Shloshim Shkolim. So therefore, we find he is chaylik with the Reish Lakish. Reish Lakish nami nema mid Eved im Eved ludarish. No, he doesn't make such a drasha. So kaifer im kaifer nami ludarish. So it sounds like Reish Lakish only says his din when it comes to an Eved that shlo b'kavana that you would not pay. Well, chayra Reish Lakish would agree that when it comes to the situation of a ben chayrin, unlike the sheet of Rabbi, that you would still pay koifer even shlo b'kavana. So Reish Lakish will say like this, because it sounds like Reish Lakish is splitting between the two. So Amri lo Eved im Eved lo darish koifer im koifer darish. There's a difference between the languages, and therefore he makes a drasha by one, not by the other. So Maishna Eved im Eved lo ksib b'makom tashlumin koifer im koifer ksib b'makom tashlumin. So again, this is what we're ending off over here. Says Rashi, in kaifer ksiv b'makom tashlumin, the svara l'ribu yachrini. It's coming to tell you something else. L'tashlumin l'gufa l'tzrich. There have l'mechtav of kaifer. So im eved lo ksiv gabi tashlumin el gabi negicha im yigach l'gufa itzrach l'chalik ben eved l'ben chayrin. So he does make a distinction in that situation, so again, according to Reish Lakish, which is very interesting, because we started off with Rabbi and Reish Lakish seemingly saying the same thing, but Reish Lakish specifically was taught. Rabbi was mentioned a case an ox who killed a person shul b'kavana your partner and kaifer. Reish Lakish said when it comes to an eved, a shor who kills an eved shul b'kavana your partner from the shloshim shkolim. It sounded like maybe they agreed with one another, but it's not true. Reish Lakish disagrees and says he only feels this distinction is dafka when it comes to an eved. However, when it comes to a ben chayrin, he says you still would be paying kaifer either way. There is no chiluk. We don't make a drasha when it comes to that to just make a distinction. However, according to the sheet of Rabbi Yochanan, he says that's not true. According to Rabbi Yochanan, he says sai ben chayrin, sai, an eved, either situation the din is, even if a shor killed shlo b'kavana, you would have to pay the kaifer, or you would have to pay the shloshim shkolim. Adkan.